All right, I love to tell this story because I think, you know, Ken would have a different perspective. I'm very good at not showing my emotions because I like to present myself as a team player. And so before we actually went in the studio to record with Ken on What If, which was our first meeting, he took us into a rehearsal facility and had us run through the songs that we were planning on recording. And I remember this specifically. The very first song we played for him was Take It Off the Top. Now, this was just my second recording as a professional musician, and I think a lot of younger musicians kind of have a different perspective on reality. We tend to think it's all about every lick, as far as a drummer, every lick that you could get onto tape, because you just want all the drummers out there that are listening to you to think, you know, the world of you. And sometimes you tend to think about the drumming just as the drumming per se, and not how it fits with the song that you're trying to play. And part of the maturing process is recognizing that the song is the most important part of the big picture, and what your drumming is supposed to do is just bring that important, perfect element to what that song needs. So Ken said, all right, let's hear Take It Off the Top. Now we start playing, and I'm like, you know, I'm this young college music school graduate, and like I have to get all of my licks in there. And he stops the band, and he literally began to tear me apart right and left. And so by the end of the process of getting together how we're going to play this song, I went from this to, I remember it was like eighth notes on the bass drum and ride cymbal, and just floor tom. Now, he didn't see this. Steam is coming out of my ears. You know, I'm seeing myself like throwing darts at him going, I hate this man. I don't ever want to do this again. But through the process, he kept saying to all of us, you got to trust me on this. You know, like I've been doing this a long time. And I think ultimately when you hear the end result, you're going to understand where I'm coming from. And I remember getting like the final mixes to the song. I know exactly where we were. We were sitting like in the band, I won't call it a bus, but like the band bus. We were on tour, you know, a few months later, and we were getting ready to go see Emerson, Lake and Palmer in an arena upstate New York, and you know, the record arrived. It was on a cassette, and we all gathered around in our bus, you know, and like listened to it, and it was like, yes, yes, and like we are gods, you know. It was such a defining moment, and it was in that moment that I realized I didn't know anything. Here's the mentor.
You mean you hated me right up to that point?
No, not to that point. Just the first day.
Epik Drums has taken 2 years out of my life to put together, and there have been occasions when it seemed like a never-ending battle to reach the end of it. We finally have, and I'm exceedingly proud of it. It covers everything that I wanted plus more. It works as a sample library just for the drum sounds that can be played from V drums or any electronic drum kit, from a keyboard, any way you want to program just the separate sounds. It works great. It works great for someone that they don't want to have to play the drum parts themselves. They don't feel accomplished enough to do that, and they want. It's a lot easier to put drum parts together with MIDI and all of that kind of thing, and everything's perfect. We, with the grooves, have more of the humanality of playing drums. They're not. The snare drum isn't always exactly on the beat. The bass drum's not always there. So someone can piece together a much more human feeling drum track, and a guitarist can play over the top of Rod Morgenstein or Billy Cobham and have an incredible drum track behind him. The other great thing about it for me is that all of the drums are multi-track, so that every mic is on its own track. There are a lot of engineers these days that I've come across that have never actually recorded a real drum kit. So from an education standpoint, with all of the mics being separate, they can learn how to at least mix live drums. with all of the problems that occur with that, such as the cymbals leaking into tom mics, squeaks, drummers that go, We actually had to gaffer tape Rod's mouth during the recording of one of the albums because he was so noisy. But for me, Epik Drums works on every level that I've just said about, and I'm exceedingly proud about it. Rod, you've had a chance to hear it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm blown away by what I've heard, and I've only heard a snippet of it at this point. I think we, the drummers, had the easiest role in this, in that all we had to do is relearn a few songs that we've already come up with the parts for, and just sit on a drum set for, you know, a bunch of hours and jam to our heart's content. It was then what has had to take place over the last year and a half or longer to get it to the point where it's now available for people to make use of. So I mean, I tip my hat to Ken and all of the engineers that have put, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into this incredible project. I look forward to working with it myself, but I'm also, you know, very excited to know that there are people who will be making use of my drumming and the other guys drumming for their projects, and hopefully they'll find a lot of these things really inspiring.
I have to say, Rod says about the drummers having the easiest part in this. If you saw the sweat that was pouring off of all of them, they're all 30 to 40 years older than when they originally played these parts, and they were having to play harder than they've played in many years, being much older, and it was tough for them. It certainly was, and each one gave 110%, absolutely.
I also remember, things are now, this is like psychotherapy. I also remember back then we recorded, you kept telling me, I got to backtrack. I would say, Ken, I want the drums, you know, to sound big on these records that we do with you, and I would say, like, what about this record and this record? And he kept saying, the more signal you can give the mic, the better the drums are going to sound, and so you have to hit the drums hard. And as hard as you're hitting them, you have to hit them harder. And again, it proved to be true, you know? I guess, you know, you can argue this to death. There are probably other engineers and producers that would say, nah, just play the way you play. You know, if you want to kind of just tap the drums, that's fine. But, I mean, I find, and I've had other people that I've worked with in recent years, you know, they're like, hit the drums harder than you can imagine, and you'll be delighted with how the drums sound.
I think what I hope most for with Epik Drums is that people will get it and use it in a totally unique way. It would be great to hear one of Rod's drum tracks and someone's rapping over the top of it, or something, just to take what we did back then but use it in a modern form and in a totally different way. To hear that would be great.